Hi, my name is Josh and I make music. Now, I haven't uploaded in a little bit because of my mental health or lack thereof, but I'm here now and I wanted to talk about Grooveboxes. Grooveboxes are a class of music making device that give you a self-contained environment for making an entire track or at least a full beat. If you're big into music tech and watch a lot of music YouTubers, you've probably seen this one. This is a pretty archetypal Groovebox, the Teenage Engineering OP1. And if you spend a lot of time on this channel, you've probably seen this one, the synth from Deluge, which I like quite a bit. Rectangles are a nice shape. I like all the colored lights. But so often when I look online and I see people talk about what they think is the best Groovebox, best value for money, most fun to use, which one sounds the best, what have you, there's one answer that I keep seeing come up. And it fascinated me, and I finally found a good deal on one, and I thought it would be interesting to talk about. And that device is the Korg EMX-1, or Electribe MX-1. EMX-1 launched in 2003, which horrifyingly I think makes it considered vintage, and I don't want to think about what that means for me. Now, alongside it, Korg released a sample-based one, the ESX-1, but the EMX-1 is built around synthesis. Now, we are going to talk about how it sounds and how it works, because those things are important, but while I'm brandishing it here, I thought I would tell you that it also is like really premium. It is encased in metal, like front and back. And as you'll see when we turn it on, it has quite an array of lights trying to rival the Deluge. Even though a lot of the knobs and buttons serve multiple purposes, as you'll see later, it is still nice having so many physical controls as opposed to touchscreens or like single buttons that cover a bazillion different functions. And just in terms of the build quality, obviously I don't want anyone to break into my home, but if someone did and I needed to grab something in my studio for a weapon, I'm pretty sure this would be a good choice. But that's enough preamble. So why don't we get to discussing the EMX-1 as a music making device instead of just as a physical object. And for that, we're going to go over to my desk, which is that way. So we're going to take a little surface level walkthrough of the EMX-1, how it works, what it does. And to start with, I figured that we could look at the very first thing that I made once I got the EMX-1 out and I kind of started to get a feel for how it works. Now, I'm not promising quality, but it's something, and it sounds like this. So, simple little 2-measure beat. Now, the EMX-1 is kind of like two separate machines together. It has drums over here, and then over here, you have your various synth sounds. Now, each of these synth channels is monophonic, sort of. There is a chord sound that you can get. So I'm just going to show you, and it's going to mess things up a little bit, but if I turn this to chord and I hit a key, you'll hear that it's playing a chord, and you can control, for instance, if it's a major chord, or minor 7th. On this patch, it sounds a little chaotic. I'm just going to go to the next patch and then back so that, or next pattern, sorry, and back so that it comes back to how it was before. At the heart of the EMX-1 is actually a pretty powerful sequencer. And a major part of what I think makes it pretty special is how easy it is to handle motion sequencing. So motion sequencing, if you've seen people, performing on a Groovebox before and they're constantly turning knobs, I mean, it works, it's doable, isn't always how you want to interact with things. So motion sequencing, you can record the motion that you make with the knobs into the sequencer. Electron's devices are pretty powerful with that. For instance, so is the synth from Deluge. It's not a unique feature, but it is very workable on the EMX-1. So to show you what I mean, we're going to go to a blank pattern. Here, we're going to do this one. And we're just going to throw together something. Now to start with, when you come into a new pattern, you'll hear by default, it has these kick drums on each quarter note. So I'm going to take those out. Now, when you click on one of the drum parts, you'll hear the sound for that drum part. Right now, they're all bass drums because, I haven't actually done anything in here yet. But you can press on these keys for the step in the pattern that you want that to play. I am going to change this kick drum sound. I'm going to go to Part Edit, and you'll see the screen changes. Here you can go through the various drum sounds, and you can press this button to audition them. I like that one. You can also scooch the pitch around, make it really low, make it really high for some reason. World's your oyster. So I'm going to use that one, and I'm going to do... I want this to be longer than just one measure. So I'm going to go into Pattern, and you have these little arrow keys here. You go down and again, and again, and again. And I'm going to change the length to 2. And now I can go through pages of the sequencer. By default, it's still got those quarter notes. I'm going to do the same thing here. So now we've got... Next, we're going to add a snare drum. So I'm going to go to the second sound and Part Edit. And as we go through, you'll see now it changes to SD for snare drum. I like that one. It's kind of dry. I will add that there and there. And I've just realized a horrible and embarrassing mistake, which is that I'm going to take this and put it on step 7. That's our kick drum. And I'm going to put our snare drum on steps 5 and 15 in both. So now it sounds like this. Next, let's add a hi-hat. So these channels here that say 6A, 6B, 7A, 7B, I use these for the hi-hats. I'm going to demonstrate why in just a moment. I'm first going to add hi-hat sounds. I'll use these ones. And we go through. So if you listen, I'm going to press this. You can hear they choke each other. So when one stops, or when one starts, the other stops, just like real hi-hat. I'm also going to just do, I don't know, something simple. We'll just do eighth notes. However, I will do an open one on step 7 and on step 15. And we'll do the same thing here. So it sounds like this. Next, we're going to leave the land of drums and come over to the land of synth parts. I want to start by doing chords. So I'm going to set our synth oscillator dial here to chord. And I'm going to then, I can go through, I can change the voicing of the chord. I can change what kind of chord. I find that this setting for the chord is much more useful with motion sequencing. Now we're going to record a chord part. It might be a little tricky to tell from how these look visually, but these number keys are laid out resembling the keys of a piano. You have your black keys here. So this is going to be C. I'm going to put our song in D minor. And this will be our chord progression. Now, right now, they're all major. I'm going to fix that in a bit. First, let's talk about how we can live record. I'm going to go to global here, and I have a metronome already set to record 2. It'll give us 2 beats of a metronome before things actually start rolling. I'm going to hit record, and when I hit play, you're going to hear the metronome start, and it'll count out 2 measures, and then I'll play in a simple chord progression. and it looks like I missed the first beat there. So let's see if I can fix it this time. Perfect. Let's get a little bit granular because we're going to edit our individual steps. I'm going to go to step edit, and right now this is in a keyboard view, but if I tap this keyboard button, we can see our various steps. And one of the things that you can change is the gate time, or how long they go for. You can get it down to quarters of a step. I am going to, again, in step edit, you'll notice if I go all the way up in the menu, it's the MOT stands for motion, and it says motion destination, no, nothing's assigned. If I hold shift and I turn this, you'll see the names for different parameters showing up. And I'm going to turn it to oscillator edit 1. So in our chord synth, this controls what type of chord it is. I'm also going to turn on motion sequencing and set it to trig hold, so it'll just jump right to whatever it's set to. Now I'm going to go to our first step, and on motion value, you can see it's flashing, but it says chord name. I'm going to turn it until we see minor. Then I'm going to go to this one. I'm going to turn it to major. And now if I hit play, we've got the minor, major, 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 back to minor. Let's make a bass sound next. So I'm going to go to synth part 2, and this one I'm going to use the dual oscillator, and you can see there's different types of oscillator that you can use. I'm going to actually go into part edit so it doesn't vanish. So like a saw and a square, and I'll turn the oscillator balance about in the middle so you can hear both. Oh, not on keyboard. And if I turn oscillator edit 2, I can pitch down that second oscillator or pitch it up. Before, the amplitude envelope I was using for this is just, if you press it's on, let go, it's off. For this one, I'm going to change the amp envelope so that it will play and then kind of fade out. There's not a huge amount of control that you get over the amp envelope. It is really either, do you want it to be on or off, or do you want it to hit and then fade away, and you can control how long it fades out for. But that's generally still enough for like basic sound design elements. Next, I'll go over to the filter. I'm going to bring the cutoff down some, but I'm also going to turn up the drive. So we have like a good amount of sound, but it's not too bright. And we'll record in a bass part. And of course, you can change these parameters after you've recorded. Next, I want us to go back to the drums because I think it's time that we motion sequenced. Now I'm going to go to drum part 3, and I'm going to change this to another hi-hat sound, and you'll see why in a bit. And I'm going to pitch it up some. I'm going to first just sequence this in steps. I'm going to do these little paired 16th notes. And here's what I'm going to do next. I'm going to, first of all, turn on motion sequencing, and I'm going to record, and as I play through the pattern, I'm going to just turn the pitch knob down, and it'll record that motion. So through the pattern, we'll have the pitch of that hi-hat slowly dropping. I accidentally overshot a little bit and got really low hi-hat notes right at the start, but I kind of dig it, so it's like that now. Next, we're going to add something melodic. I'm going to use, let's see, I will use one of the PCM sounds. So it does have some kind of rumpled in sounds. I'll use this alto sax. Now, like with the others, we can change things. In this case, it's a comb filter. If you want to add other effects, you do have effect sends. So let me talk about how the effects work on the EMX-1. It might not be immediately obvious at first glance. So when you choose effects, you have this effect zone for the controls, and over here is the effects chain. So you can choose whether each effect is like routed into each other and how. I could either have effects 1, whatever the first effect is, go into effect 2, go into effect 3. I could have just effect 2 go into effect 3, or I could have it go 1 into 2 into 3, and that then is sent, to our master signal. I find I like doing effects 2 into effects 3. I'll make 2 a delay, 3 a reverb, which is like not groundbreaking sound design, but is, it gets the job done. And I will do that in this case. I will do first, I'm going to go here, edit select. I'm going to turn effect 2 into a BPM sync. Over here, I'm going to go to effect select on 2 and hit FX send. Now, I don't want it to go too long, so I've turned the depth down. I'm actually going to set the delay time to, let's see, quarter notes. And turn the depth down some. And next, I'm going to go into the edit select for effect 3, and I'm going to make it a reverb. I'm going to bring the time up and the level. Reverb and delay sound like this. Now I'm going to record that in because it's, pretty simple to play. And it looks like I messed up one of the notes in there. So I will again go into step edit. Bam, bam, bam. And I will make sure. That one should be a G. And I'm gonna have this one hold out a little longer. Next, I will also boost the level of this one. So as you can see, pretty easy to quickly throw together a beat. I get slowed down sometimes trying to explain because I feel like my brain moves faster than my mouth, and my brain doesn't move all that fast if I'm being totally honest. Couple fun things here. I have the tube gain up a bit. You might notice these 2 cool little vacuum tubes. Those are not just for show. You can send your signal through it to act as a compressor. So for instance, if I turn it up really high, well, it's going to sound really loud. But around the middle, it kind of just warms up the whole signal. I don't know if the vacuum tubes are like a killer feature, but it is neat just having a sort of master gain / compressor that you could send everything through. Now, when you're done with your pattern, you hit Shift and Right, and I'm just going to name it ampersand. And I'll hit right to D37. That's the space in the memory that we're working in. Now there is a song mode in here, and I thought that the best way to demo the song mode would be to first play you something on it and then explain what went into making it. Now, the EMX-1 has a very maybe it's just me, it has a very classic sci-fi vibe to it. I could see this as being a prop in a 90s sci-fi movie, if not for the fact that this didn't exist until 2003. That being said, I made a sort of scary sci-fi inspired short song on here. So I'm going to play that for you, and then we'll talk about how that is put together. And we're back. So what you just heard was really just two patterns with motion sequenced muting and unmuting of the parts done in song mode. So in song mode, I can string together a bunch of different patterns. So if I go to different positions in this song, you'll see that I have a pattern. So here at position 1, I have note 1, which right now only has this synth part unmuted. So you're just hearing those chords. And what you can do is you can live record mutes or unmutes into the song mode. So if I wanted to, and this is just for demonstration purposes, if I go to play it, I can just... And now if I play that pattern back, you can hear that it is now unmuted. Because I like the song to just go back to how it was before, I'll just go and reload it. And now the song is as good as it was. So in song mode, it's very easy to take just like one pattern and spread that out into a more kind of like complex arrangement, because you can have parts muting or unmuting on the fly and control it. This is also what I did for our intro track. It starts with just a couple channels unmuted, but you'll see from the parts that light up that more things come in. So now we have 2 unmuted as well. This is, I think, a great implementation of a song mode. You put together the patterns, but then you can kind of mold them even more in the format of a song. Some aspects of it, I think, leave a little bit to be desired. One thing I've noticed in song mode, and I've tried to see if I can like get around this, and I've been pretty unsuccessful, is that while like the replaying of the pattern and the muting and unmuting is very smooth, one thing I found is that when you switch patterns, there is a pretty audible like pop almost when it goes from the pattern was previously playing to the next one. So I believe from 8, yes, to 9, this song is going to change patterns. And just listen, you'll be able to hear at the end of this pattern. And if you want any kind of a recipe for confirmation bias, you can track the progress through the pattern by watching these lights. So it might not have been like crazy audible, but there is that like jump when it switches. I mentioned that I haven't been able to find anything that totally gets rid of that. One thing that I find does help is actually just having the next pattern be like a totally fresh sound. That is, even though there's, I think, a similar kind of vibe between those two patterns, I have the next one just come in with like a lot of stuff going on. Whatever goes on in there is like harder to notice. That might be my most like seemingly unverifiable tinfoil hat complaint. I would say that the pattern sequencing gets 2 thumbs up. The song mode gets like 1 thumb up. This thumb's kind of like around halfway because it's not as smooth to me as the pattern sequencing. Now, if you're looking at the EMX-1 as a platform for making like really long arrangements, you can. I think that the way that it works, it is very well tailored towards arrangements where you like have a single pattern that you play around with, bringing parts in, bringing parts out. With that in mind, if that's the thing that you're interested in, the EMX-1 might be great. I want to do a little bit of a wrap up before we have our final music demo that I'm excited to share. There's just one thing about the EMX-1. There's one change that I do think would make it, if not perfect, about as close as it could possibly get. Perfect. Before we close out, I want to address some questions that I'm pretty sure people will have about the EMX-1. And of course, if you have a question that I don't cover here, please leave a comment, ask away. But I feel like the first one that comes up is, do I think it's worth the price? Now, I understand that nothing is universally worth it for everyone. I can only speak about, my own experiences, my own opinions. I have mixed feelings about whether or not I think the EMX-1 is worth its price. It has a really positive reputation, and the unforeseen consequence of that is that prices on it can get kind of high. For context, I got mine for around $400. It has some nicks and scrapes that I think contributed to it being at a more affordable price. And I think for $400, yeah, that's awesome. If you are really into the idea of the EMX-1, that would be a good price. I don't know if I would see myself spending more than like maybe $550 on it. And I know the EMX-1 has a lot of fans, and I realize that might seem crazy, but I'm also coming at that from the perspective of someone who like has other gear they can use to make music. If it was your only item in your studio and you're really drawn to it, I could understand being comfortable with spending more than that. And that kind of ties into, I think, also the question of, is it the greatest Groovebox? And again, I'm just speaking for my opinions. I'm going to say no. Now, not being the greatest does not mean it's bad. Please don't leave an angry comment. Personally, my favorite Groovebox is the Deluge. I love it. I love it to death. I've used it a ton, and I plan to keep on using it. With all that said, I still think the EMX-1 is phenomenal. I'm not like planning to sell it once the camera is turned off. I'm probably going to be uploading more songs that I've made on it. So all in all, my vote is like not the best, but it's up there. But with all that said, I want to thank you for watching and listening. I hope that you liked this video, and if you did and you feel so inclined to, please, subscribe if you aren't already. Hit the like button. And like I said earlier, if you have any questions about the EMX-1, please don't hesitate to leave a comment. I love questions, and not just because engagement is good for the YouTube algorithm. To close out, and I know this might seem a little bit out there, but I made a version of the song Misty Mountains from The Hobbit, like the Hobbit movies. using the EMX-1 and my tin whistle. I'm still learning it, so apologies if there's some mistakes. Imagine if like Thorin Oakenshield had to play like a chill electronica set, was sort of the vibe I'm going for. Again, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Bye.